Hello, folks. AJ England, Studio 1396, Columbus, Ohio. This is Late Lap, presented to you by... Wait a minute. Nobody's here. The man known for plugging my partners, my boss's partners. There's nobody. I am here to just get things right. And we are going to do the right thing. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to have some fun. By the way, this was a gift from the great Ashley Hood. So shout out and thank you, Ashley. Okay, here's the deal. What do you want in a motorsports show? How do you want to be entertained? I don't have a teleprompter. I don't have show notes. It's here, my first chance to welcome you and say thank you. Thank you for being here. And I want to know those feedback to those two questions. What do you want to know about motorsports and how do you want to be entertained? Because tonight, we're going to do both of those things, although it'll be a little bit different. A little bit. The opening segment here we call the AJ log, and so usually it's going to be, a lot of fun and some surprises and a little bit witty. But to be frank, folks, tonight, for the first time on the show, we've never done one of these shows. It's a brand new venture. I'm a little pissed. Tonight we had a great motorsport stock car veteran in Mike Wallace. Of course, you know the Wallaces. There was Rusty and Kenny and Mike and Steven and Chrissy. And it's one of NASCAR's most significant families. And Mike was going to join us. He was courteous enough to say, hey, I want to go on and I want to honor my wife, Carla, who had passed about a year ago. He wanted to come out of kind of a semi-retirement and talk about the 2025 Daytona 500. He wanted to celebrate an opportunity for his first and maybe his last chance to drive in a next-gen car. He wanted to talk about a lot of great things and things that he had a wonderful opportunity to share a wonderful family story. And he was more than courteous to be our first guest here on Late Lap. And I got a call tonight. And Mike said, hey, Aaron, he calls me by my government name. He says, how are you? And I said, I'm great. How you doing? I can't wait for the new show. And folks, his exact words, I'm doing kind of shitty. And I laughed and I thought he was having fun because, sometimes the Wallaces, they have some fun. And tonight wasn't one of those days. They were informed recently, I believe it was today, that he will not be welcome to contribute or compete in this year's NASCAR season opener, the Great American Race. And the Daytona 500 field, frankly, folks, it's a hot lap of disappointment. Let me just slam the brakes here for a second and say, what are we doing, NASCAR? The Daytona 500 is supposed to be the Great American Race, the crown jewel, the ultimate proving ground for stock car racing. But this year's field feels more like an overpriced buffet. Too much filler, not enough substance. And if you're not my best friend, Logan Morris, there's nothing great like a cheap buffet, or an overpriced buffet. But here in the stock car world, that's not great. First, let's talk about Mark Thompson. And before we do, the excuse I was awarded was that NASCAR says due to inactivity, Mike Wallace wouldn't be welcome. Mark Thompson, you may remember him in the 2018 Daytona 500, a storyline of Danica Patrick's final race and, some other great moments in that weekend's events. Mark Thompson, the 65-year-old, was riding around the track at about 140 miles an hour. Now, I respect Mark. The man's got stories older than some of his competitors, and sure, he brings a certain vintage charm to the track. But we are really giving up valuable spots to the Daytona 500 to that part-time driver who barely dusts off the fire suit once a decade, and that's over a several decades-long career. It's like inviting a retired chef to cook at the Michelin-starred restaurant. Nostalgic maybe, but not exactly cutting edge. And then there's Helio Castroneves, and I'm all for crossovers. You all know I'm happy that Helio has an opportunity to compete. Helio is a legend in his own right. A 4-time Indy 500 winner, Spider-Man on the fence, yada yada. And I'm sure that on this show, I'm going to praise him. This isn't about him. This is about principle. The guy is being locked in, though. It feels less like authenticity and more like marketing gimmick. Can we say that? I get it. He's flashy. He's got a smile and he can sell some tickets. And yes, his credentials are impressive. But this is the Daytona 500 and not Dancing with the Stars. Let him earn it in on speed like everyone else. But you know what really gets me? The fact that Mike Wallace isn't in the field. Are you kidding me? Mike Wallace, a man who has done the laps, paid the dues, and actually understands this style of racing, gets sidelined. This isn't just a snub, it's an insult to the sport and its fans. Mike could have been the ultimate underdog story, the kind of driver who understands how to bide time, pick the draft, and make the move when it matters. Instead, we're handing seats to vanity projects and names that look good on a press release. The field should represent the absolute best stock car racers on the planet. The Daytona 500 is supposed to be sacred, where grit, experience, and raw speed take precedence over headlines and sponsorship deals. In fact, if you followed Mike on his brother's show, he was self-funding this over a project with Carl Long and MBM Motorsports. Instead, we've got patchwork, and it's a grid that feels more like a circus act. Nostalgia on one end, marketing on the other, and actual talent squeezed somewhere in between. So yeah, I'm fired up. Daytona deserves better. The fans deserve better. And Mike Wallace certainly deserves better. Here's hoping the race lives up to the hype. But as for the field, it's hard not to feel like we've lost the plot. And so we do continue, where we're going to dive into the stories here. And looks like we've got a little bit of some lag there, so we'll pick it back up here. Looks like we had a little bit of lag there. Welcome back to the Late Lap, where we dive into stories and careers that have defined motorsports. Tonight, we shine a light on the driver whose name is synonymous with excellence at Daytona. A man who has proven time and time again that he belongs on the track. And this is a race in time, special feature we were going to talk about tonight, the Atlanta 592. And this race in time, we're going to talk about Mike Wallace. Mike's name might not always headline NASCAR's biggest stories, but for those who know the sport, he represents the grit and determination of a true racer. A member of the prestigious Wallace racing family, Mike has spent decades carving out his own legacy. His reputation for clean, strategic driving has earned him respect in every garage he's been a part of. But nowhere has Wallace's career shone brighter than at superspeedways, particularly at Daytona International. Let's start with one of his finest performances, the 2007 Daytona 500. He drove the number 09 car for James Finch's underdog, then Phoenix Racing Team. Wallace delivered a jaw-dropping performance in a race filled with chaos and drama. He avoided every bit of crash and misfortune. And, for a small operation like Finch's, this was kind of a result that felt like a win. Wallace's ability to elevate his equipment and his team standing in this sport was on full display. But Wallace's success at Daytona wasn't limited to that one February afternoon. In the 2004 NASCAR Xfinity season opener, Wallace drove to victory in dramatic fashion, earning his first win at the historic track. It was a moment that showcased his ability to perform under pressure and his knack for mastering the draft. His poise and racecraft in high-speed packs made him a perennial contender on the superspeedways. And we can't forget his triumph in the 2001 NASCAR Truck Series race at Daytona. In a field stacked with talent, Wallace showcased his clean, calculated driving style to take on the win. It was yet another chapter in his superspeedway legacy, demonstrating his versatility across NASCAR's top 3 series. The success didn't stop at Daytona. In 2011, Wallace brought home another superspeedway win, this time at Talladega in the Xfinity Series. This race solidified his reputation as a superspeedway specialist, a driver who time and time again could find his way to the front when it mattered the most. But Wallace's connection to Daytona and superspeedway racing runs deeper than the statistics. His career reflects the kind of resilience that embodies NASCAR's spirit. He's raced for large teams and small ones, often overperforming in underfunded equipment. His reputation as a clean racer, a driver who works with others in the draft and avoids unnecessary risks, has made him a respected figure in the garage area. And let's not overlook his family heritage. Mike Wallace is part of one of NASCAR's most storied racing families. As the younger brother of Hall of Famer Rusty and the older brother of Kenny, Mike has carried the family name with pride and distinction as well, building his own career while honoring the Wallace legacy. So when we discuss Mike Wallace tonight and his place at Daytona, the evidence is clear. He belongs on the track. His story of success, his knowledge of superspeedway racing, and his reputation for clean, strategic driving make him just a worthy competitor, but also one who adds value to the field.